I'm Gray Thompson, and you're listening to the Fête College Football Podcast. What's that smell? Rich mahogany? Vanilla? Allspice? It must be Vitamin J Spivey, PMSMD. What's up, Jay?
Did you say Old Spice or Allspice?
Yes. I actually don't dislike Old Spice, but I don't think you would like to smell that way.
I'd really
smell much
old.
better than that. In fact, Old Spice should come out with a Spivey.
A Spivey.
Yeah,
J.
like those commercials are great.
There ought to be a J.
Get
J.
clean, get Spivey.
Get Spivey. We're at Velo Fellow doing our podcast. We'd like to thank Velo Fellow for having us. We just had shrimp po' boys, both of us, and I'm telling you, it's the goods.
I wanted to get two, but it's a big sandwich. It's just so tasty.
And the other thing is, if you haven't done the iongreenville.net Pick'em College football contest each week, you need to go to iongreenville.net and sign up.
It's not too late.
It's not too late. Gray's only behind me by about 3 games, and there are only a couple of weeks left. Neither one of us are going to win the whole thing, but you know, I don't consider myself a great picker based on points and all that. So I kind of tend to not go with a gut feeling, like Tennessee beating Kentucky.
But you didn't pick that one.
I didn't pick that one,
right.
But yet my gut feeling was I thought Tennessee was going to beat them, and they did.
I think Kentucky's gut feeling was Georgia punching them in the gut last week, and that must have been what happened.
Well, let's start off with Clemson. I think they handled Boston College pretty well.
Yeah. Do you remember? I'm sure you do, but I'm going to ask for the sake of the podcast. Do you remember asking me what I thought about the Clemson-Boston College matchup a few hours before kickoff?
Yeah, you assured me that this was not going to be a problem for Clemson at all.
There was a lot of talk about how competitive this game was going to be.
Right.
And I told you what I thought the defense might do.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to repeat it right now here on the podcast.
The defense pretty much did exactly what Gray Thompson said it would do, and that shut down Boston College completely.
They went for a 0. They nearly had the 0 except for a crazy kickoff return.
Yeah, so no offensive points scored by Boston College.
0. It's close enough. It doesn't count, sure.
How many rushing yards to the total yards were ridiculous, but it was just ridiculous all the way around.
They had over 100 rushing yards for sure. I remember that, but Clemson just stifled them. Wilkins was outstanding, and Watkins, it was a team effort for sure. This was to clinch the division for the 4th year in a row, so it meant a lot to them. They brought out the orange breeches, which that was one of the reasons why I was picking Clemson to win, to not just win, but win big, and particularly on defense, because these guys were hungry to do it, and when those guys get hungry and amped up, who's going to stop them?
Right.
We can make arguments about competitive teams, but Boston College lost their quarterback early, and it wouldn't have mattered. It just wouldn't have mattered.
I was kind of surprised in a way, Clemson, other than allowing that punt return, and that guy who returned the punt could move.
Yeah.
He was great.
He doesn't do anything else on the team, right?
Right.
He's
like a backup
punts.
receiver.
Yeah.
And I thought, why is he not playing receiver? Because, God, he's good.
My guess is he's just a freshman, but still.
And with that being said, Clemson knows they're going to the playoffs for the Atlantic Coast Conference title. They got Duke coming up at home. It's Military Appreciation Day, so I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of celebratory stuff.
It's Military Appreciation Week. And I want to point it out just because I think Clemson does a really good job with highlighting all this stuff. It's important to Clemson. Obviously, he's still got all the tie-ins with military at Clemson, but it's a big deal. I like this stuff.
I do too.
Fly over Saturday, get there early. The kickoff is early, no, it's not early.
It's 7.
My point is everything's going on earlier than that. So the earlier you get there, the better. Hey, it's tailgating. It's not like Clemson fans are going to be upset to be there at 8 a.m.
It'll be a lot more festive, calm, relaxed, happy, wonderful home game than the one that comes next week. But I'll tell you, Clemson's favorite pick by 28 over Duke.
How do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good about it. It's probably the first time this year I feel really good about the point spread. I think Duke's won a few games, but they're not anything exceptional. And I think Clemson will have another opportunity to play 70-something players. Give everybody a good workout.
I think that's likely.
And so they'll head into rivalry week with the Gamecocks and playoffs and all that kind of stuff, really doing pretty well. Now, it's not like I'm overlooking Duke, But I see this as being a relatively easy game.
Still a conference game. It still matters.
Still matters.
But you're right. This is not just going to be relatively easy. This is going to be another opportunity to get everybody that they can to score points.
Right. Well,
and more to the point, Duke just lost. I think they're starting free safety, so they're not even 100% right now.
Yeah.
Mitch Hyatt went down in the Boston College game. He went in and came back out several times. I haven't been able to find out any more information about that, but it sounds like he was just banged up. I think if something was sincerely wrong, we would have heard about that by now for sure. So
well,
it is what it is.
He's, the man. He's played
No, Jay, you're the man. Mitch Hyatt is a
man.
A very nice second, maybe even third place.
Well, I don't know about that. And it's like Dabo was saying in the press conference this week. This senior class has won more than any senior class.
Well, not yet. They have to beat Duke, and then they will have. Yes.
But then
more than any other senior class in the ACC, not just Clemson. It's pretty spectacular.
But, they could say the same thing last year and the year before, so it really tells you something about the program. You never think about it as a Clemson fan that this is 3 senior classes in a row that have set records. And you're going to kind of get to the point where you can't surpass. If they go undefeated and win the national championship, no one will ever surpass this senior class.
Oh, and that's a good point. Do you know who has the record for most number of wins in a senior class?
It's got to be Alabama.
Why do you say that? Which class was it? Do you remember?
No, but it's got to be Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama is actually tied for Clemson right now in second and in first. They have, I think it's 53, which obviously Clemson can do just when they let's just fast forward to next week. That could be 53, right?
Right.
But then now you factor in the playoffs. I'm not sure how much that counts, but to me it counts. It should count.
It counts. Well, it counts when you're recruiting.
Yeah.
Holy cow, if you could tell people you hang out here for 4 years.
It's epic. There's no way to what's wrong with me today?
There's 1 or 2 other programs in the country that even come close to that.
You can't misinterpret what that means.
Right.
It's epic. This class is full of guys who are going to play in the league and full of guys who might not play in the league who have contributed to the college football team and program immensely. So the ACC, for example, is down this year. It has not been this bad for a long time. It's still incidental. These guys have really crushed it.
Right.
Can't ask for more than that.
And they've risen above the level of competition. So if there was that game, like Boston College or whatever, where it was supposed to be a decent game and it should be a real challenge for Clemson. It wasn't. And that's where, in years past, even with Deshaun Watson, Clemson would allow North Carolina to stay in the game. They would allow NC State to stay in the game. That's not happening this year.
Not this year. I would argue that some of those teams are way down low, like Jay Spivey's Timber Voice.
Let's move on to Bama. They won.
Bama didn't just win. I got what I wanted. Another 0.
Another 0.
Roll Tide.
And how hard is that? It's almost impossible to get 0.
It is virtually impossible. In this case, it's even worse because Mississippi State basically scored a touchdown that got reversed from a really bad block in the back call. They threw another touchdown that the ref said, no, it was a false start, and it was just not good officiating. Mississippi State's athletic director has reached out to complain and filed a formal complaint to the officiating crew. And this is not uncommon. I imagine Dabo was going to do the same thing. This happens every week. Yeah. You're supposed to hold these guys accountable. But that play was, look, Alabama was going to win this game anyway. I think that was pretty clear. It's not like Mississippi had a ton of injury attrition or something like that. The play that took Boston College's quarterback out was not illegal, but people sure did talk an awful lot about it.
I'm sure they did.
You have to beat so much more of everything to be clear about that sort of stuff. However, with that said, I'll take the 0. I love it. I love it.
Oh, my God.
Tua did not look spectacular. He looked mortal, I think is a good way to put it.
He looked normal.
He looked normal, yeah. He did not look like he's having fun out there. His knee is continuing. It's a pain problem. It's not an injury like you remember a few years ago when Deshaun Watson had his ACL tear, and he came back, and he's still wearing the brace, clearly still in pain, and Coach Sweeney just kept saying, it's fine. He just has to play through pain. Tua's going through the same thing, but without any tears. It sounds like he has a small tear in the top corner of one of his outer meniscus for his knee. It's something he's going to have for the rest of his playing career, including in the pros. He's going to have to learn to play through this.
That's why they make Advil.
Yeah, well, actually, Advil you don't want to take for this stuff because what that Advil will help, it won't help you build that cartilage back, so you don't want to take Advil.
Well, don't you know these guys on the college level
Yeah.
are getting the best doctor's care that is humanly available?
Not yet, because we can't. Stem cell is a big outlier. I think that's going to change the sport when stem cell,
Maybe
not
so.
just research, but development for stuff like this is going to be a huge turning point for all athletics. Like Tiger Woods, for example, his knee has been the biggest problem for him for a decade now. If you can fix that with stem cells, which what it sounds like is it's super effective, it's relatively quick.
He's doing it because, and he's doing it because Jack Nicklaus did that in Europe for his back, and it basically kept Jack Nicklaus walking long after he quit playing golf.
It is
the way to go.
Incredible stuff. I'm not going to make it a political thing at all. I think there was a misconception that you were just cracking open baby skulls and pouring it on your joints and hoping it made it better. It's not how it works. Stem cells can adapt to turn into basically any kind of bodily cell, and I think that's why it's been so useful. However, the University of Alabama has a medical school, and obviously that's not part of their curriculum or anything. It's not. It will be in the future. It's unfortunate that we have to watch this stuff now because it seems to be so effective.
Well, speaking of stem cells, what about the Citadel game?
The Citadel? It's a yawn fest, Jay. It's an embarrassment.
I wonder how much Citadel is making.
It's probably 1.3 mil.
So they pay out a lot more than Clemson does.
It depends on the team and it depends on the game. But, look, I'm speculating, but I do know this. I know Texas A&M is playing UAB. I think it's $1.5 million to play in College Station this weekend.
Holy cow.
UAB is resurgent. They just locked up Conference USA. They're done. They're good to go. And Texas A&M, they had another win this weekend, but they're out of the top 25.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about UAB. It could be a trap game is what I'm trying to say.
Well,
they've been a lot of fun to watch, and this was a program that vanished. They're 2 years removed from being gone.
Right.
They didn't even have a program.
But Citadel, I worry about games like this because, A, you don't want to see one of the Citadel kids get hurt badly and truly, this isn't making fun of Citadel, but there are bigger, faster, stronger people on the Alabama team than anybody else Citadel will ever play.
They run a modified option, though, at the Citadel, and so that, to me, means more problems for your offensive guys and their knees.
Right, and so conversely, you'd hate to think that one of the stars for Alabama would get hurt. And granted, this is a money-making game for Citadel. Otherwise, this would never happen.
I don't like it. And, Coach Nick Saban has been calling for an expanded league play to have one more SEC game on the calendar. I don't know which one. Let's put it this way. Who would Alabama have to play this weekend in the SEC that anybody would care about? Georgia? I mean, that's the only one I can think of, but that's already locked up for the East Championship, so we're going to get it.
But any of them would be better than Citadel.
Absolutely. So I wish we would do it.
Same thing with Clemson. I love the idea that they play Furman, and it's right down the street, and they've always been friendly, and they've been playing Furman in major sports forever. But if there was a way that they could add Virginia Tech or something like that to the schedule and not do Furman, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, again, at least what I like about Clemson and South Carolina, for what it's worth, when they do schedule these games, they keep it in state.
Yeah.
They sort of share the wealth, which you don't do with North Carolina because of the Charlotte, North Carolina Panthers being North Carolina. It's a different state.
Well, so, everybody's going to play against Citadel. Yeah. Everybody's going to get a chance. It's going to be like a glorified scrimmage.
Tua's going to start. Look, if you listen to national media, they say some of the craziest stuff. Yeah. You should instead be listening like you are right now to the Fête College Football Podcast. Stop saying things like Alabama is invincible or Saban should bench Tua. Things like that. Tua is going to start against Citadel. He's going to play. Alabama's offensive line did not protect him necessarily well, but they're crucifying this O-line in spite of the fact that you can't tell if they missed an assignment. Mississippi State brought a ton of different looks.
Right.
What I've heard is that, now we have a path Now we have a clear understanding of what it takes to beat Alabama. Like, I wouldn't say that at all. Taking Tua out of the game and going for his knees is not a bad attitude to have. I will give you that. It's smart, but you still got to bring multiple looks. Look,
Right.
Auburn in 2 weeks is not going to be able to do that, for example. They just don't have the dudes to do it. Mississippi State does. Like we said last week, this was the toughest defense Alabama was going to play. Sure, Clemson's tougher than that. Scoring 24 points isn't going to be enough, but I'll take the 0 and the win.
Well, I'll tell you, there's going to be for Citadel 2 things that happen in this game.
Tua things?
Two things. There's going to be that moment, and there may be many of these, but there's going to be one particular moment where a Citadel player, coach, or number of players is going to go, holy crap, that guy almost killed this guy on our team.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be another moment that Citadel is going to use in recruiting, story, folklore, everything for 100 years, where one Citadel player is going to make one incredible play, and that thing is going to be used truly for the next 100 years. As
Truly.
Yeah, Joe Smith, you should have seen him take down Tua, and that's going to be so Citadel's going to have 2 things coming out of this. 2
Are they
good
going to score
stories.
points?
No. 2 good stories, though. One's going to be, holy crap,
Holy crap.
we almost died, and the other one's going to be, holy crap, did you see that guy knock down that guy? I mean, so good for Citadel.
Overload. Pleasure overload.
Yeah. All right. Georgia beat Auburn. I don't think that was much of a surprise.
No, it wasn't.
And they got UMass coming up, so another relative cupcake game.
Yes. No, it's a cupcake. We can say that. It's okay to say that.
So
Yeah.
Georgia gets a chance to rest a little bit.
More to the point, I think it's important to say that. These teams are playing cupcakes but not benching their starters like you
Right.
see in the NFL. We're never going to get an undefeated NFL regular season team because once you lock up your division, you quit. You're supposed to quit and protect
And-
these millionaires. But
And I tell you, all these little cupcake games, it's great for good running backs. Because running backs, thinking that you don't have to throw the ball and all that.
well, you want to control the clock, just get out of there with W. That's
all
why you
the
run.
running backs for Clemson, Bama, Georgia, all of them are going to have field days.
All 3 of them.
And so
Well, speaking of field days,
rushing
maybe we'll get to see Justin Fields do more than just hand the ball off once or twice. No, this is an opportunity this weekend against UMass for Georgia to stretch their legs a little bit and let guys like Justin Fields get some experience. It's the truth.
And, Georgia's clinched their stamp, their ticket to the championship.
They're clinched all right.
Yes, so, all they got to do is rest up and practice well over the next couple of weeks. It doesn't even matter if they lose to Georgia Tech, other than
It doesn't matter.
that may take them out of the playoff picture completely.
The playoff committee has seemingly been very deliberate about voting teams higher or lower based on defensive performance, not just offensive performance. That's why we're seeing Oklahoma sort of be on the outside looking in. Georgia's defense has been very good. Clemson, Alabama, these are teams
Yeah.
with very solid defenses.
Right.
Washington State, not so much.
Well, enough about the Bulldogs. The least I can talk about them, the better.
Is that right?
I mean, I just don't care.
What happens if you face them in the college football playoff?
We won't.
Potentially for the national title.
We
game.
won't.
No?
Nope, Georgia's not going to be there.
Except there's certainly a possibility for it to happen.
Yeah, but,
but
they're not going to be there.
Duke doesn't have a possibility. Georgia does.
Georgia's not going to be there.
Okay. You'd rather play. But my point
You
is
heard
what you
it
said
here.
earlier. You'd rather play Notre Dame than, for
You-
example, Georgia or Alabama. Correct?
Well, I'm going to be happy with whoever Clemson plays in the first round because it won't be Alabama. So
that's true.
Georgia's not going to be there.
You got to beat Duke first.
Right. So University of South Carolina lost to Florida.
No, they didn't. They technically did. No, I'm frustrated again. I like Will Muschamp. I really do.
I don't know why.
I don't either.
Because
He's begging me not to.
He's not a sweet, wonderful guy.
I'm going to try to keep this short again, too. Will Muschamp, damn it, you lost the game for your team. They took their foot not just off the gas, but they cut it off. They just cut their foot off so they couldn't put it back on the gas. Felipe Franks got booed by
Yeah.
his own fans.
Right.
Then he comes back, wins the game, that game-sealing touchdown. He goes over to his student section, and he's giving them the shush sign, telling them to be quiet. And we were talking about this earlier. I remember Cole Stout getting booed and booed and booed. And then his final game was that bowl game against Oklahoma where he just could not be stopped.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. It's everything I hope to see from college football. What Cole Stout never did was shush his own fans.
Right.
I'm not sure how to feel about it. I like it. I don't hate Felipe Franks. Florida is such a question mark. But the truth is, South Carolina lost this game themselves, and they lost it with coaching, which always bugs me. When millionaires are the reason, like Georgia with LSU, I still believe that was all on the coaches. Georgia did another fake field goal again, which feels like they're just preparing to use something against Alabama because they know they're going to face each other. It didn't work. It's not pretty. It's not necessary. What was necessary was Will Muschamp to do a better job, and he didn't, and I'm not happy about that.
Well, they've got Chattanooga coming up at home, so their cupcake game.
Moccasins. Comfortable, rugged shoes.
Hopefully, South Carolina gets in a good practice because the next week they're going to learn to count to 5.
Oh, Jay.
We'll go to that later. All right, Furman crushed VMI.
Go Furman.
But everybody's crushed VMI.
So what?
And they've got Mercer at home, the Mercer Bears.
Yeah.
Paladin Stadium, 3 p.m. FU all the time.
FU once. FU twice.
FU all the time.
FU all the time. Mercer has been consistently scoring over 30 points, which I don't like. I think this game's going to be close. I don't know what that's, don't forget, we talked about this earlier too. Furman had to cancel the game against Colgate, who is undefeated at 9-0. Yeah. This is Furman's last game of the season, so I'm hopeful that they win, but Mercer looks identical almost to Furman. So
depends
we'll
on which Furman shows up.
I guess so. And hopefully they all show up.
They've been the tale of two teams this year. It's kind of amazing. They play hard and do well in one game, and then the next game it's like they forget.
They looked incredible at Clemson in week 1. Yeah. They really looked like they were going to be able to have a strong season, and then they lost 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah.
But now they've been winning consecutively.
Like I said.
So I don't know what to think. It's not like South Carolina where week to week you hope they get a performance that's good, but then they fail anyway, like this past weekend against Florida. Man, we're going to let it go, but I really wanted South Carolina to get that win over the Gators. I don't dislike the Gators. And like I said, I like Will Muschamp for some reason, but gross. I just can't look, James Franklin is the king of getting in the way. The last 5 losses have all been for like less than 4 points. He gets in the way of victories. It's gross. And Will Muschamp I say Will Muschamp because it seems to me like this is all based on his design, and it should be. That's what your head coach gets paid for, but I don't like it. I'm not happy about it.
Well, the only big game I see this week is Notre Dame at Syracuse up in Yankee Stadium.
Did you see Notre Dame's uniforms this past Saturday where they brought back the green?
Yeah.
We had people over and we had it on a projector screen, and the girls were saying, what's wrong with Notre Dame's uniforms? Why do they look like that? And then I said, it looks a little different over here on the TV screen. And they looked and they said, yeah, it's a little different. It's still ugly. It's still real bad. This weekend, do you know what they're going to look like?
The pinstripes on the sleeves.
They're going to represent
horrible.
The Yankees, the Yankees baseball uniforms, which is one of the most iconic sports uniforms in all of sport worldwide, I should say. But it's still baseball. It looks embarrassing.
It looks
terrible.
And if you're an iconic product like Notre Dame, why would you want to try to emulate another iconic team? Is Syracuse dressing up their uniforms to represent the Mets?
Well played, Jay Spivey. No, they're much smarter than that. They don't need to do it. Notre Dame doesn't need to do this stuff. They do it every year. I have not met a Notre Dame fan who's like, I've met some who were okay with it. I've never met one who's like, man, you know what I really look forward to is those Yankee uniforms. I don't like it.
Well,
they really don't look good. And that, to me, is going to be a competitive football game.
Well, it's a 9. Notre Dame's 9-point favorite, but I'm taking
9 seems like a lot.
I'm taking Syracuse in the points.
Is that right?
Because I feel like the speed of Syracuse
Yeah.
As long as they can keep up with the really large, big receivers and tight ends for Notre Dame. But I think their speed could keep them in this game.
You brought that up earlier, too. Yeah, Notre Dame has receivers and tight ends, but they haven't been able to get them the ball very significantly at all. Ian Book was hurt this past weekend.
Right. He'll be back.
Yeah, he's going to play in this game. It's okay. Brandon Wimbush replaced him, and he still looks – I've always been a fan of Brandon Wimbush. I was really hopeful for him, but no, he's not good. He's really not good.
Well, I'm not a Notre Dame fan.
Do you feel like they are the number 3 team in the country right now?
I think if they beat Syracuse by more than 9 points, then yes, I can feel like they're the third best team.
Let's not jump ahead. Let's just say where they are right now, because the committee has to do the same thing.
I think so. I mean, why not?
In a lot of statistical categories, it's Alabama and Clemson, or vice versa. In fact,
Right.
Clemson leads Alabama in defensive categories and overall defense. Notre Dame is third, but it's distant. It is behind Clemson.
Right. I think right now, because they haven't lost a game.
And they won against Michigan, who,
And
frankly, I think looks like a better team.
Right. I think if they played Michigan today,
Yeah.
I think there might be a different outcome.
No, not necessarily. I think they're about evenly matched.
Yeah,
That's
but
how
I
it
think
looks like.
I think and that's why I think Michigan as number 4 kind of makes sense. But to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Syracuse beats Notre Dame.
This is the highest ranked and best performing Syracuse team, I think, ever, isn't it?
I think if they play out of their minds and Notre Dame plays a little flat, I just think the Syracuse speed could be there at the end.
That's their key, right? They have the speed.
But
Dino
they gotta
Babers
have the
isn't
day.
afraid to go for it, and they do a really good job with the tempo. I
'Cause-
think I thought South Carolina was going to look more like Syracuse this year on offense, and they don't. And I watched I watched Louisville get embarrassed
Right.
by Syracuse, and then they fire Bobby Petrino, which that's all we're going to say about that, because he
Yeah.
doesn't deserve to
He's
coach
a
young
jerk.
men. Yeah. I don't like Brian Van Gorder either, putting 5 in the box against Clemson. Who does that? Get them both out of the sport permanently.
Well,
Thanks, Syracuse. Go Big Orange.
I kind of want Notre Dame to win and go undefeated because, as Clemson will stay at number 2, I want to play Notre Dame in the first round of the playoffs so that we can get them out of there, and so that
Get them out of there.
Clemson doesn't have to play.
Isn't that
Alabama.
interesting, though? That's nobody's talking about, hey, this is Notre Dame, who looks like they can compete to win a national championship. I want it to be that way. I was hopeful for Ian Book to be that way. Now he's got to come back after missing a week and having injury against Syracuse. Frankly, I'm nervous.
It's going to be. I think it's.
And
gonna
it
be a
kicks
good
them
game.
out. If they don't win against Syracuse, they're out. If they win against Syracuse, then they go on next week to face SoCal in Southern California, which looks winnable. SoCal lost to Cal at home. Puke on the Trojans.
Right.
Not good.
Right.
Cal's not a good team.
South Carolina's terrible. I mean, not South Carolina. Southern Cal. Sorry. Same thing. Southern Cal's terrible.
No, I don't know. They're not terrible. They've been fun to watch, especially at home, but now I'm just confused.
Yeah.
So is that where we are?
Notre Dame's going to beat them by 47 points.
They've been fun to watch this year, but the Pac-12 is still a nightmare. The Apple Bowl this weekend, it seems like that's what's going to determine a lot of results that will essentially not mean much of anything.
Washington State,
again, on the outside looking in, their offense is fantastic. Gardner Minshew, oh, man, his mustache, the flavor saver, it's terrific.
He's
you
great.
saw Coach Leach wearing the mustache after the game. It's terrific for the sport, but is it enough? I don't think it is, and the committee seems to agree defense is more important than we'd like to believe, which I like. Thank you very much. But
and you think about it, well, let's kind of wrap this. I mean, next week is all the rivalry games, but there's no sense of getting in that. And we may have a special guest hostess next week, but I'm not going to say who it is.
are you going to wear a dress?
No.
Please?
We may have
Please.
a woman come on the Fête College Football Podcast. She's very interested. But the conference playoffs coming up, I mean, when you think about potentially Clemson versus Pitt, that just seems weird.
Does it?
Bama's going to play Georgia.
Pitt was the team that beat Clemson when they won the national championship a few years ago.
Oh, I know. But you think of the Big Ten, you got Michigan and Northwestern, which seems weird. You've got Pac-12. Who knows if Washington State's going to prove to be real? Big 12.
The Big 12. This
somebody's
is what I'm looking for.
Somebody's going to implode because you can't have Oklahoma, West Virginia, and then on the outside, the Iowa State, Texas, all that. But I mean, so Oklahoma or West Virginia is going to lose a game, and then they're going to play each other. Yeah, they play
each other in Week 12.
And then they're going to play each other again, and one of them's going to lose a game.
Well, no, it may be Texas.
Maybe.
And so that's the argument, is that Oklahoma in a rematch against Texas, if they throttle Texas, would that be enough to convince the committee? Yeah. I think it still depends on defense.
But either way,
it's a rematch.
Either way, Oklahoma or West Virginia is going to lose at least another game. And if Oklahoma doesn't, they're not going to leapfrog, Michigan if they win out.
Yeah. No, they're not.
And they're not going to leapfrog Notre Dame.
Craptacular.
It's craptacular.
Big 12 brought back this championship game because they felt left out before. They thought it would help them. It seems to be backfiring this year.
In particular.
It won't be boring. It'll be good. Look, I've heard a lot of complaints about this is one of the most boring years in football. I completely disagree.
I disagree.
It's been a blast. Sure, it might look like the top contenders are so far ahead that you can't compete with that. But if you know that going in, doesn't that make it more fun? More teams are scoring more points. Look, I get it when we didn't like that Alabama wasn't scoring points and they were winning games 9-6 or whatever. Right. So we asked them to get better on offense, and they have done it.
Yeah.
Is this not what we want?
Same thing with Clemson. I mean, Clemson is now scoring lots of points against lots of people. Yeah, you can be perennially an upset, aggravated curmudgeon if you're an NC State fan.
Well, my point is, don't listen to people talk like that. Even NC State was, at least for the first 6 weeks, for the first half of the season. People, look, we're in November. This is the end. We got 2 games left before everything else sort of starts to trickle out. If you're not having fun with this sport right now in the golden age we're living in, shame on you.
Yeah, that's the whole reason for college football.
Boo.
Well,
I've had a blast.
I guess we ought to wrap this up.
Go on.
Is there anything else you want to add about this weekend's cupcake schedule?
It's not good for the sport. It's not good for anybody. I don't know what's going to take to change it. Clemson plays Duke, who is not good. Duke opens against Alabama at Alabama next year. Whether or not it's in Atlanta is incidental.
Poor Duke.
Alabama's home schedule next year is absolutely putrid. South Carolina clearly has the hardest schedule in the country next year, but I'm a fan. I can still enjoy the look. I'm looking forward to Notre Dame Syracuse, for example. But there is just a lot of really crap games this weekend.
Yeah.
And for the first time all season, I'm not thrilled for a whole weekend.
I am not going to sit and watch more than about 8 or 10 minutes of the Bama Citadel game. Because in the end, I'll be bored, Now, I will watch the whole Clemson-Duke game, but, and I'm sure as hell not watching the USC-Chattanooga game unless you text me at the end of the game saying Chattanooga's ahead.
Who is Tennessee playing?
Who knows? Does it matter?
I feel like we should at least take 10 seconds to say Tennessee has beaten 2 SEC opponents this year.
Let's see. Who is...
No, they have. They had 0 last year. Does that not still make them the most improved team in the SEC? Beating Kentucky was a sincere surprise to me.
They're playing Missouri.
Ooh, that's not a win. Missouri has been misjudged all season long. Missouri is sincerely tough. Their schedule, their resume, their win-loss record is what makes people go, oh, this is just something you got to get through. That's Missouri. No. They've been good. They just haven't had the results. Simple as that. Tennessee has not been good, and now they have some results.
Right.
Again, Pruitt, from what it sounds like, is doing the right thing, and it's working. But, God, I still don't like them at all whatsoever, and I really wanted to see Kentucky just do the best they could to be in second place in the East, and losing to Tennessee is it's a skid mark for sure.
Well, I just can't wait for rivalry week to get here.
Rivalry week.
And I'm going to give some crap to the South Carolina fans because I just remember how obnoxious they've been in the past, how unrealistic, how short-sighted.
Yeah.
I think South Carolina's going to get completely embarrassed, but let's wait for that.
We'll talk more about that next week.
All right. Well, Gray, thank you. Thanks to Velo Fellow.
Thank you, Velo Fellow. I'm still full.
I'm gonna say
Military Appreciation Week at Clemson.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're wearing the purple pants this weekend or not.
I know it's after Veterans Day, but if you ever run into a veteran, thank them for their service, because they have spent a goodly portion of their lives serving our country, and that's a big deal.
You know, I thought a lot about this yesterday, Veterans Day. Why is that? I know it's a national holiday, so to speak, but why is it not? Why don't we close everything down?
Well, federal government, banks, all that were closed.
Sure, but it should be something that we all celebrate. Yeah, I mean, it's not that far of a stretch to say, why does anybody have to not celebrate it?
Right. Well, I think most people do recognize and celebrate.
We recognize it.
Right, and it's a federal holiday.
Sure.
So, you know, the one thing I wish people would kind of understand and kind of get the difference of, Memorial Day in May is the time to celebrate and honor the people who have died serving our country.
Yes.
Veterans Day are for the veterans who are still alive.
Exactly right.
To celebrate their service. And I think a lot of people get the two confused, because you see a lot on social media and all that of posting pictures.
That's my point.
Of long ago passed away veterans.
Yeah.
Celebrating them on Veterans Day, and I get that, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It's not that. It's that it's not a big enough deal that we know the difference.
Right.
And it should be.
Right.
And more to the point, again, Clemson is doing Military Appreciation Week. They're doing a flyover and all this stuff that's going to be great for all that on Saturday at the game, or before the game, I should say. I like all this stuff. I wish it was more apparent everywhere else. I just think it's important. So
I do too.
Any veteran you can find to thank, do it. Do it again. We don't do it enough on Veterans Day. I know it's a big deal, but it's not a big enough deal. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, God bless our veterans. God bless Gray Thompson. God bless the Velo Fellow.
Yes.
And I guess we'll see y'all next week.
Like it or not.
Fête it be.
Fête it be.